Thank you for inviting me. My petition is Directive 98/ATC. The points I'd raise is in the members' notice to the members, it says I would have had to pay a fee of €5 million. That isn't correct. Or the manufacturers would have had to pay €5 million. This was set too high for smaller companies. You have adjusted it, but unfortunately I've lost my business because of this. It should have been done sooner, more thoroughly and more correct at the beginning. There are more carcinogenics still on the market because they paid a fee. I use one in agriculture. It's known formalin for the disinfecting of cattle and sheep's feet. It is a known cause of several types of throat and nasal cancers, backed by the World Health Organization. This was the London hazards sheet, yet this hasn't been banned. You had an impact study by 2 German chemical companies, and they weren't sent to the farmers or professional pest operators. There were 5 tailored questionnaires. One was for users. I was a user. I wasn't informed. I went through a European MEP for Labour in England. She didn't even get to know until 4 months after it lapsed. The conclusion of the study, and I asked how much it cost, and I was told it was irrelevant to questions I asked. It shouldn't be irrelevant. I want to know how much the taxpayers are paying for an impact study which can only come up with assumptions, not proven facts. I've asked for help to voice my opinion from our Ministry of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, GETTR. It has strychnine hydrochloride had been stable and unsurpassed for 50 years plus, unsurpassed and stable. From a doctor at one of our 2 universities in England, who's doing a 3-year study since the withdrawal of strychnine, stated it was the most cost-effective method for large-scale agriculture. National Farmers Union, Director General, practicality needs to be brought back into this legislation. And an appeal made on behalf of the British Pest Control, backed by our Health and Safety Executive, tried to keep it going on a derogation for the wording, essential agricultural use. The costs that have been placed on the government that I said should have had a view in it would have said have been borne entirely to the taxpayer. And yet 2 German chemical companies with a biased opinion, and I can't get to know how much they were paid, can only come out with assumptions. And yet our Health and Safety Executive tried to make an appeal to keep it going for essential agricultural use. For the last 50 years plus, it came under our Pesticide Safety Directive. What can we believe in these people if they aren't doing the job right? If you say that these dangerous chemicals, and yet they've been backed by our organisations, well-known organisations for our health and our safety and our environment. Improving the legislation, which you say you've reduced the costs, I agree entirely, but I'm sorry, you've done it too late. I've lost my business 5.5 years ago. I'm working 7 days a week doing 3 part-time jobs when you're backing the alternatives of trapping aluminium phosphide and an illegal gas blaster of oxygen and propane that blows them all to smithereens. There's a loophole in the law. You're not doing nothing about it. I've lost my business. It's trading on the black economy. I did nothing wrong. I work within the law. And unfortunately, you said sufficient information on the members about the alternatives. You didn't put down. I'm afraid I did. It was in the petition. I think you're reading answers from my objection. The conclusion is, I feel oppressed by this legislation. I did nothing wrong. I acted within the law. There are illegalities out there that don't seem to be addressed. and I would like a full impact study done, please, to the British farmers who use strychnine themselves and did the job themselves, and to commercial pest operators to give their views, which they should have done in the beginning. And the cost, you say, to write to everybody, you just couldn't do it. But I hear of perks to European MEPs for breast enlargements in our national press, for Viagra tablets, bowing to the taxpayers, and yet people whose jobs have been affected and they don't get a say. Strychnine, so please either legislate or compensate. And in some notification I've received, it says you would make a fact-finding visit. I ask anybody here, please come on the farm. How can I work against the black economy, and how can I place traps in the ground when our climate is of snow and frost and expect to earn a living? I thank you very much. I'll conclude.
Grazie a lei.
Thank you very much, sir. John Benstill for the Commission.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. I'd like to start by just setting out the basic principles of the directive we are talking about, so the Biocidal Products Directive. The logic underpinning the entire directive is that biocides are such by nature that they risk being toxic for man or the environment or both. And therefore, according to the legislation, biocides can only be placed on the market subject to an assessment of these potential risks. So the objective of this rule is to ensure a high level of protection of man and the environment. And to allow the risks to be evaluated, the directive provides for a review of all the substances which are currently used in biocidal products. And in the process of this review, the biocides industry had to identify all the active substances currently used in biocides, and a company wishing to continue using an active substance had to notify its intention to submit data allowing the risk assessment to be made. And this implied also then financing the necessary collection and evaluation of the data. And what is important for this case is that the legislation says that if no company indicates its intention to support a substance, then the Commission takes a decision banning the substance from the market following a certain phase-out period. So such a ban is not based on a proven risk. It's based on the fact that no risk assessment could be made of this kind of products which potentially are toxic. These rules apply equally for all biocides on the European market and all active substances used in biocides. So if we look at then how these rules were applied in the case of strychnine hydrochloride, this substance was dealt with in accordance with these general rules. It was identified in the beginning of the review process as a substance used in biocides, but there was no company and no government who indicated to the Commission its intention to support the substance with the data necessary for the risk assessment. So in consequence, this meant that no proper risk assessment could be carried out. And together with a number of other substances, strychnine hydrochloride was given a phase-out period until September 2006, after which it could no longer be placed on the EU market. And it is true that, as the petitioner says, that the United Kingdom requested an extension of the phase-out period based on an argument of essential use. The Commission rejected this application. Before the Commission did so, it had a consultation with the stakeholder, and it turned out that the inputs from stakeholder were very polarized. So some argued that strychnine was the only effective control agent for moles in the UK, and other stakeholders were in favour of banning the substance with a phase-out period and referring to alternative methods, particularly traditional methods like traps. In its decision to maintain the phase-out period and the ban for strychnine hydrochloride, the Commission took into account the presumed existence of alternatives and the fact that no other country in the EU seemed to have a significant problem with mole control without recourse to strychnine. And now if we look at the review of the Biocides Directive, to which the petitioner has also referred, the Commission has proposed a review of the directive to address a number of issues identified with the implementation. The Commission launched its proposal in 2009, and the proposal was based on an impact study from 2008 and an implementation study of 2007, and indeed a stakeholder consultation of 2006, to which the petitioner has also referred. The stakeholder consultation was launched on DG Environment's website. That's the standard practice for stakeholder consultations. So we think it's unfortunate that Mr. Brown could not apparently contribute to the consultation, but nevertheless, concerns about the phase-out of strychnine were identified and raised by other respondents to the consultation. The Commission proposal of 2009, it does provide some flexibility in the data requirements. It is more supportive of the needs of small and medium-sized enterprises, but it also maintains the primary objective of ensuring a high level of protection and man of the environment based on a proper risk assessment of all active substances used for biocidal products. And it maintains the principle that essential information on toxicology and ecotoxicology cannot be waived on the basis that they are too expensive for the industry concerned. So, in conclusion, we believe that the Commission has acted within the legal framework provided to it by the Biocides Directive adopted by the Parliament and the Council, and that the Commission has taken measures to assess the implementation of the directive and respond to certain concerns. Thank you.
Am I allowed to speak?
One moment. Il collega Bouland.
Mr. Bouland.
Sur le sujet des biocides.
Well, on biocides and pesticides, I think that the Commission's approach is a wise one, and that given that we work within the framework of the principle of precaution, I would say to the petitioner, given the problems that they've had professionally, I think that it would be quite legitimate for him for there to be a continuing of studies of secondary effects on people, even if there have been authorisations or withdrawals of authorisations in the meantime. To say that we used it for 50 years and it was okay is not really acceptable. Many things were legal until new scientific evidence led us to ban them because there was a health impact. So I would lean towards the precautionary principle rather than the Commission's view, I do think there's food for thought here about the distribution or the levels of penalties, be it imposed on producers or users of pesticides. Perhaps compensation is possible, but if we don't have a full study on the use of strychnine in combating moles, then perhaps we need one. Everybody knows that there are lots of other methods that don't have any side effects and which might be used instead.
Collega Jahr, no.
Mr. Yar, you don't want to come in? Yes, please. The petitioner to reply.
Thank you. I agree that caution needs to be addressed, but we've been backed in Great Britain for 60 years by using strychnine under strict legislation of the Pesticide Safety Directive and the Health and Safety Executive for 60 years. We've been under the EU for 40 years while strychnine's been going on. 40 years. How safe is it that it's taken the EU 40 years? Strychnine has always been a deadly poison. It hasn't been a mediocre poison. It's always been a deadly poison. 40 years we've been under the EU. I asked a question in 2004 to the EU regarding is the Commission aware of any evidence of a potential adverse health impact on humans and animals resulting from soil contamination from mole activity? I'm afraid you didn't answer the question in a proper manner. You replied, the Commission is presently not aware of any scientific evidence indicating that the presence of moles in soil poses specific health risks to animals and humans. The mole in the soil isn't the problem. The question was, is the Commission aware of a potential health impact from soil contamination? You said there wasn't. I have 3 state universities. Listeriosis, one tough bug, a zoonotic disease by a contaminated silage. In fact, I'll read you the words. Listeriosis is an infectious disease. This is a zoonotic disease that can be spread from animals to humans and has been implicated as a potential human health risk association with the contamination of milk and meat.
Collega Nuttall.
Thank you very much. I've been backing Peter's case for a couple of years now, and I actually found it astounding that I'm now told that there's been no proven risk by the Commission, and I absolutely 100% agree with my colleague down here who said that there needs to be a full study into this. But it's not just about humans, it's also about the animals as well. I mean, look, strychnine has been used in Britain for 70 years, and trapping a mole or killing a mole using strychnine, it will take 15 minutes and the mole will be dead. You know, it takes twice as long, at least twice as long, with aluminium phosphate, and the mole suffers a very painful death. And trapping the animal, it can take up to 2 days to kill the mole. So we're not just talking about humans here, we're talking about the rights of animals as well. But as I say, please let's look at this again. Please let's do some real proven risk study. And, you know, this is an opportunity. Peter knows this game inside out, and this legislation is harming mole catchers in my country, in the UK. I please ask the Commission, please look at this again.
Credo che questa petizione.
Well, I think the petition has raised a rather sensitive issue. My feeling is that the Commission hasn't exactly responded to the precise issues raised, but has rather illustrated how things are now. So we haven't really heard from the Commission in terms of the scope for a potential review of the directive, or to use other means to potentially introduce this problem or pick up on this problem in European regulations. Now, I think it would make sense for our committee to ask the European Commission to step up its efforts a bit, to give us, in other words, the documentation that illustrates the direction that the Commission wants to go in. So whether there's a shutdown on this, or whether there's any scope for a review of the existing rules, and that could be something we discuss. So I would close the petition for now, but I would ask the Commission to provide this kind of clarification. I don't know if you can give us a clarification now, or whether you can provide it in writing. I wonder if the Commission representative can tell us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To try and respond quickly to your request, first of all, at the present time, strychnine cannot be used anymore. All the procedures under the existing directive have been exhausted. We did not receive from any manufacturer an indication that they wanted to support this substance, which meant that we and the authorities did not have the toxicological data and the ecotoxicological data to be able to do a proper risk assessment at a European level and say this substance can be put on the list of approved European substances for use in biocides. When we were coming to that decision, as my colleague has explained, the UK authorities did ask for an extension on the basis of essential uses. We considered that request, and again we came to the conclusion that looking at all the evidence and on the basis of the indications that we had that there were suitable alternatives, that the argument of essential use could not be supported, and therefore we went ahead with the phasing out of this substance. In the future, if a chemical company wishes to come forward and propose again a new dossier, put forward a dossier for strychnine hydrochloride, it will be considered again according to the rules of the existing directive, or when the new regulation is adopted according to the new rules. So it is always possible to come forward with a proposal as long as the data is there, because I think the point that my colleague tried to make is that we have the obligation to make sure that before a substance goes on the list of approved substances, that we have looked at all the toxicology and the ecotoxicology, and the list of information that has to be provided is specified in the legislation. So if we don't have it, we cannot carry out that risk assessment. And that's why we came to the conclusion that the substance could not be approved. We didn't have the information. It had to be withdrawn. The opportunity always exists, if a complete dossier can be put together, that we look at the substance again. But we cannot say that simply because it costs a lot of money to produce the information, that therefore we do a light risk assessment.
Non ci sono interventi.
No further comments from colleagues? Well, I don't think there's any more we can go into on this petition.
I disagree. Like I said, it's taken all these years. It's been a deadly poison. 60 years, 70 years, been in the EU 40 years. You know, there's chemicals out that I've just stated. I use a chemical now for the disinfecting of cattle and sheep's feet. A proven nose carcinogenic. Proven by the London Hazard Centre for several types of nasal and throat cancers. Backed by the World Health Organisation. And yet, because of fees paid, it's granted. It's it's in use. So fees mean nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Our government and the EU should look at it further, please, and get the full facts. The full facts are everybody should be consulted, not tailored questionnaires. Thank you very much. I'll conclude now. Thank
Ancora il collega Boulan.
Mr. Boulan.
Très rapidement.
Very briefly. We've withdrawn certain products on the basis of the precautionary principle. That's normal. If there are economic ramifications from this decision, then I think it's clear that the parties concerned should have some objective facts justifying the impact on them. And it's not just about strychnine. There are other pesticides and biocides that would fall under the same heading here. And I think that a study of the nature that you've just suggested, Chair, updating the biocides directive, would be a perfectly legitimate suggestion.
Quindi mi sembra che insomma.
Okay, I think we've given a comprehensive response, although I understand that the petitioner doesn't wholly agree with it. But I think we have drawn a line under the petition. I think we have to close the petition. But a plea has been made to the Commission, and we really want the Commission to follow through on the questions that have been put. Although we did have an off-the-cuff response today, so the Commission does come back to requests that have been put, but it doesn't seem that any such requests have been put, such that the Commission would explore this in any greater depth for the moment. So I don't think there's anything more we can do on this, and I think colleagues will agree with me when I say that we should conclude the petition there, although I understand that the petitioner is not entirely satisfied with the outcome.